This is the oldest version of Minecraft. We've actually already done this where we transform a regular, simple cobblestone house into a massive castle. And you guys like that one so much, we're going to do it again. So we're going to start with the earliest version of Minecraft and build a simple house. And then with every major update that there's been to the game, transform it with the new block additions. Now, if you want to see me do more of these updating through every version of the game builds, then you're going to have to get this video to 130,000 likes. And I know we can do it because in the pyramid transformation video, I asked for 100k and we got well over 200k. So go down below, like the video, let's get it up there. And while you're down there, you might as well subscribe as well. Apparently only 17% of you guys watching right now are actually subscribed. So subscribe, ring the bell, do it all. And let's get on with the video. This is our little alpha build. Well, house. I guess you can kind of call it a house. It's basically just a little cube. But in old alpha, you don't really have any blocks to choose from. You literally just have cobblestone. So we've got a little cobblestone cube house. Great place to start off with. Now it's time to move into the next update. And this is pre-classic Minecraft. And as you can see, this is actually the house that we built for the last episode of this. And so now we've got to do the same thing and transform this little cobblestone house. But we're going to start to include our little Japanese theme. So this is our little upgrade for this update. And this is what we've done. So the actual house is a little bit different. We've actually got a sloped roof on it now. And we've also got the addition of a little torii gate out front as well. But of course, it's basically just made out of stone and this one wood type because that's all we've got to work with. And this is meant to somewhat resemble a shrine of some sorts. And of course, we've got these little shrubbery ornate pieces on each side. And that about does it for this update. But we've got an idea, we've got a concept, so let's build on top of that. We have just entered the classic version of Minecraft, and because this is old Minecraft as well, there's no way for you to port the worlds forward. So I've had to rebuild everything in this new world, and now that I've done so, we're literally going to transform it and make some adjustments. As you can see, I've actually got a hotbar of items this time, a vast selection of new blocks and items to use in the build. Right, we've made our little changes and updates to the build, and this is what we've got. So of course, I've edited the torii gate. It's now using logs and slabs as well in the design. Very detailed, I know. I've added leaf blocks as shrubbery on either side, and I've used coal ore blocks here because I've not got anything else to use. But later on, I plan to transform these into little Japanese garden statues. As for the actual house itself, it's a little bit bigger. It's got a slabbed roof now, and I've also used logs here and there just to vary up the design a little bit. But that just about does it for this version of the game, so it's time to go to the next version. Right, hold on. Before we continue with the build, I've got a custom limited edition TrixyBlox plushie, and it's out now. Now, if you couldn't tell, he's based on my Minecraft skin. Plus, he's got that TrixyBlox staple of a baby face and the little curls up top as well. And look, he's even got a little TrixyBlox logo on his uniform. Now, we're running a campaign, and we've got 2 weeks left to sell 400 of these little guys. Otherwise, they're never going to get made. But that basically means that if we don't reach the goal, then all sales will get refunded. So you've not really got anything to worry about. And if you really do want to support the channel, then please go and check the link down in the description, go to Makeship and purchase one of these little TrixyBlox boys for yourself. And that way he can guide you to Minecraft building greatness. After classic Minecraft, we've got the Infdev version and then alpha itself. But I'm not going to be building in these versions of the game. And my reasoning for this is it's only in survival. So yes, I could technically recreate the house in this new world and then upgrade it with some of the new blocks. But it'd be way too time consuming to be able to do this all in survival, especially if I have to do it for Infdev version and then the alpha version. So instead, we're going to jump straight into beta and apply some of the new updates that we've got from these versions in that version. So we've entered Minecraft beta, and I've recreated the build that we had previously in this brand new world. Look, we're in a spruce biome. It's completely different. Anyway, now that I've recreated it, we're going to upgrade and transform it with some of the new block additions from both alpha and beta. And this is our beta Japanese house. And as you can see, the torii gate looks a little bit different. I've used red wool, so now we've got that nice red torii gate. I've actually got a custom little path here using slabs and pressure plates. And the house itself looks completely different. It's a little bit bigger. We've still got that same sloped roof, but I've included sandstone into the wall designs and changed it from the regular oak planks. And I've changed these little garden statues to make them use pistons and stairs. We've also got a custom tree out the front of the house. Now, it doesn't look very good here at the moment, but when we transform it later on, it's going to look, oh, so good. And that does it for the beta update. So let's get started with the next version. This is the first officially released version of Minecraft. And of course, we've made some changes. Most notably, out front, the Torii gate is actually made out of nether bricks now. As for the custom tree, we've actually changed in some new leaf blocks. We've got oak and spruce leaf blocks in there now. And of course, the house itself is a lot bigger. We've actually got a second tier to it now. You'll notice I've changed the sandstone walls to endstone because that was one of the new additions with the first official release of the game. But it's very reminiscent of the previous version, just slightly bigger, a few more changes here and there. Inside, we've got an enchanting table in each corner, and we've got a brewing stand. We've added that into the little shrine thing. Changed out the regular torches for redstone torches. But that does it for this version, and let's upgrade to the next version. This is Minecraft version 1.2, and it's a little bit snowier than it was previously. It's the biome that we're in. Anyway, we've now got a third tier to the house. I've added some chiseled stone brick into the Torii gate design, and I've also included it on the garden statues out front as well. We've got this spruce platform that the house is now sitting on, and we've also got some redstone lamps. You can see we've also got an intersecting roof design as well, starting to break up just the regular boxiness of the house that originally was. But that's what we did for this version of the game, so let's move on. With 1.3, we extended the house even further. You can really see it's got this tiered effect that's going on now. We've now got the addition of some other stair variants. So we've got stone brick stairs and we've got spruce stairs. And with these new additions, we can actually place the stairs upside down finally, which we couldn't previously do, which are just going to lead to a whole bunch of new building possibilities. So I've decided to use these upside down stairs for all the little supports that are holding up the roofs. But that just about does it for 1.3. Let's move on. We're now in version 1.4, so the actual house itself doesn't look too different as it did previously. The main changes that I've added are I've scattered in a few little custom boulders and rocks around, making use of the new cobblestone walls, as you can see, because that was just added in this update. And we finally upgraded those weird little Japanese garden statues. As you can see, we've got an anvil in the middle. That's also one of the new blocks. We've now got flower pots in this update, and I didn't really know what to use them on, so I decided to just add a few into the tree. Item frames are also new, so I've decided to add them on top of the redstone lamps. And we've got some button variants now. So we've got stone and wood buttons, so I decided to decorate the whole house with them. But that does it for 1.4. In 1.5, we've not added a huge amount, but the main thing is we've changed the smooth sandstone walls that we had into quartz blocks. This was the kind of look that I was trying to achieve at an earlier point in the game, but we didn't have any kind of block that was like it. So I had to settle for end blocks and sandstone. But I'd say this is really starting to come together, looking a little bit like a samurai's house. The dropper block was one of the new additions to this version, so I've decided to add them into the garden decorations that we've got. I don't know, adding this one block into this garden statue, because of the texture that it's showing, it's just a nice little addition. But it just goes to show you what one block can do. Now this is pretty cool. Inside the building, I've used daylight sensors and signs to make little Japanese chairs, because obviously they don't really have chairs. It's kind of basically like a cushion that you kneel on in Japan. I've also taken the signs and decorated the supports with them as well. Right, let's move on to the next update. Welcome to 1.6, and as you can see, we've not made any changes to the actual building, but we've added an entire other building. This is kind of similar to what I did with the last time I did this video. Now my reasoning for this is it's a stable, because 1.6 provides horses, hay bales, so there wasn't much more that I could do other than make a stable, which is what I've done. So it's nothing spectacular, but it's just a cute little stable building, and that's about as far as things go. So that just about does it for 1.6. Let's move on to the next version of the game. Now that we've entered 1.7, we have the ability to use World Edit and the replay mod, meaning I'm able to start making much larger changes to the build without wasting any time rebuilding or building block by block. First things first, I clear out the dense forest surrounding the building and raise it up on a plinth. Of course, now we have World Edit, I can start doing large amounts of terraforming. With the building now atop a large cliffside, I start clearing away the debris surrounding the building and extracting each individual part of the build we've featured so far. This way I can reposition and transform them separately. It was time to make some big changes to the house. So, using some reference images of fantasy Japanese castles I found online, I started building new wall sections to add onto the bottom layer. I used the same spruce logs and quartz, while including stone brick and red terracotta into the design. The wall design I built is modular, meaning I'm able to copy it around and construct a completely new level to the house, made up of just that wall. I used spruce wood as support beams to hold up the new stone brick roof. The roof has a gradual slope to it. However, I built it up slightly to curve upward onto each of the corners. I copied the roof around while leaving a gap at the front of the building, which we'll tackle in a later update. Atop this large roof, I wanted to include another roof, mimicking the same design as the one we just created, only a little bit smaller to top off the building. This was to create a tiered effect to the building, like different layers of a cake. The roof design climbed towards a peak until at the very top, where I built out a large dark oak wood beam. I built a pillar protruding from the roof. The design of it resembled that of a traditional Japanese torii gate, except this would bridge across the large gap in the building. Finally, I finished up the top of the building with this wood pattern and then mirrored it over to the other side. And I finally added a similar detail to each corner section of the roof. 1.8 brings us a bunch of new blocks and shaders. After updating the fences used on the building supports, I added a few hanging banners outside each of the windows and filled them in with stained glass, which was added in the previous update but I'd forgotten to include them. I raised the building into the air and began working on the next layer down, mimicking the same sloped roof design that peaks up at each corner. The roof would be held up by more spruce logs that blend down into the design of the wall. I begin featuring red terracotta into the design to keep things consistent throughout, and again use the same pillar design from above and placed on each corner of the building. Sea lanterns were also added in this update, so to finish off 1.8, I added a few small hanging lanterns. 1.9 only includes a couple of new blocks, and I tried including one of them, these purple blocks, by changing the stone brick roof. But ultimately I decided to scrap that idea as it didn't fit with the design. Instead, I wanted to feature end rods. So it's time to fill in the giant hole in the middle of the building with a large lantern. I used quartz to act as the rope so that I could hang the lantern from the big torii gate design included in the roof. I tweaked the design for some time as I was struggling to get the right shape for the lantern, but eventually managed to achieve an oval of red wool that fit perfectly in the gap I'd provided. I surrounded it in red stained glass and detailed it with trapdoors before moving on. 1.10 provides us mainly with a few nether blocks, so I decided to change out the red wool inside the giant lantern for nether wart, and the red terracotta for a nice deep red nether brick. Again, I raised the building into the sky as we're only getting bigger from here. Between the pillars I made these custom large bells. Typically they'd probably be made out of gold or some sort of metal, but Minecraft doesn't provide us with anything like that really, especially at this update in the game. So instead I settled for some spruce wood. I used bone blocks when building out these walls, and it gave off a lined grading effect, which was really nice. I added a few crenellations before capping off the floor. This level to the building is very open, which I really like, and there are literally no walls to it whatsoever, just pillars that support the upper levels. 1.11 doesn't provide any new blocks, but instead of skipping the update, I decided now would be the perfect time to terraform the surrounding landscape. There were multiple different biomes meeting in this area, which wouldn't look too attractive, so I had a lot of work to do. Now, when I was looking into reference images and researching Japanese castles, they almost always seem to be depicted surrounded by very tall staggered mountains. Massive cliff faces with almost flat tops to them, which is different from the usual type of mountains I create. To achieve this look though, I used many giant spheres of sand and pretty much stacked them up at varying levels, with some of them quite literally reaching world height. Now as you can imagine, this took a very long time. Each sphere has a radius of 20, and because they're made out of sand at a large scale like that, it can occasionally cause the game to lag a fair bit. Now of course I could have used stone and it would have made the process a little bit easier, but I use sand when terraforming because the block has gravity to it. It falls when placed and creates a more natural looking landscape. Now I did accidentally forget to unpause the recording during this clip, so as I wave my magic wand, the mountains will suddenly pop into place. As I mentioned, the mountains reach world height, and I really wanted them to tower over and encapsulate this build. So I dug the terrain surrounding the castle down to bedrock so we could make the absolute most of that 256 block world height. I neatened up and lowered the center pillar of terrain before gradually blending the mountains down to the bedrock level. once again using spheres of sand. Then, using the same technique, only this time cylinders instead of spheres, flattened the tops of each mountain peak to make them look less spherical. Finally, at bedrock level, I blended the terrain together for a smoother transition and used the same technique around the center pillar. With the main bulk of the terraforming now done, I converted the sand to stone. The terrain is now a grey, blank canvas, so I must paint over it to add a little pop of colour. I overlaid the stone with a layer of dirt, and then went over it once again with a layer of grass. Ignore the world glitching out and disappearing if you can. It only persists for this short clip. I converted the very bottom of our world to sand, as I intended to fill the bottom of the mountain range with a lake, surrounding the centre island. With the mass amount of terraforming complete, it's time to move into our next update, 1.12. This is known as the colour update, which provides the vibrant concrete blocks. The best way I found to incorporate them into this build was with a singular Japanese cherry blossom tree. I decided I wanted this to sit beside the castle on the island. I built up the trunk and manually created each branch using red wool. Once done, I converted the wool blocks to log blocks to ensure that they're all facing in the correct direction. And then lastly, mixed in magenta and pink concrete and some stained glass for the leaves of the tree. With the main feature tree done, it was time to whip up some regular custom trees to use in the surrounding environment. I basically did the same process as before for these trees and used a mixture of regular leaves to finish the design. I made 3 different custom trees, one regular, a taller one that somewhat resembles a bonsai tree, and finally a smaller one to add enough variation. With the 3 trees finished, it was time to scatter them around. But first, the landscape was looking a little too blocky, so I added grass tufts and shrubbery. Even something as simple as this can really change up the final look of a project. Now with that done, I pasted in the trees around the lake edge, trying to keep a good variation, rotating them around on a different axis, and trying not to have the same tree side by side. The replay mod doesn't support version 1.13, so we're going to move straight into 1.14, but I make sure to start off by including the 1.13 additions first. On the bed of the lake, I add seagrass and a mixture of coral to add some subtle colour. Now it seems I can't go a build without having to include a dragon, so I start etching out the head, making sure to get the proportions correct. Now I started building out the neck, and then realised I needed to reposition him to allow for more space to build. Also, if you hadn't noticed, I'm building the dragon out of prismarine, as my intention is to create a Japanese jade dragon statue. I snaked along and built out a simple guideline, and used spheres to create the body. Finally, I added some limbs before lining the spine with more prismarine. Back at the main building, I included a bit of prismarine at the base of the design, and decided to change the red nether brick to red concrete to make the contrasting colours pop a bit more. I cut off the dragon statue's head and place it out the front of the building, and while there, include some quartz crenellations to the base of the building. Before moving on and finishing off the main castle, I decided to add some waterfalls bursting out of the cliffs and mountains, gradually trickling down, forming small lakes and pools of water hidden in the mountain tops before reaching and filling up the lake below. Now I've used this technique before, and it's the best way of making custom waterfalls without having to deal with Minecraft's water physics. To do this, I built what would be the water of the waterfall out of blue wool. Then finally, once all of the waterfalls are in place and I'm happy with the design, I overlay everything with red wool to help me differentiate the colours easily, to make sure that the blue wool is completely covered. Then I convert all of the blue wool to water, and lastly, the red wool into barrier blocks. This way the barrier blocks hold the water in place and keep the design as intended, resulting in some pretty nice looking waterfalls. We're at the home stretch now, and we're finally in the latest version of Minecraft 1.16. The first thing I wanted to do was convert the regular stone brick roof into new blackstone bricks. Because this was the final update, we had to make some big changes before the finale. So on one side of the building, I add in another roof and continue to slope that all the way down towards the front of the castle, in a distinctive curved shape. Under the dragon head, I add a base platform and build it down into the large roof to add support to the structure. Using dark wood and some concrete, I build the castle down further to also connect with the new sloped roof. The design of this was very tricky to say the least. It's very similar to the previous ones I made. However, I had to somehow connect it together with the slope on the right of the building, which juts out at a slightly different angle. Now, after lots of fiddling, I finally neatened things up and added log support beams to hold up the roof. To get things going on the next layer, I use white concrete as the base and create a pattern out of dark oak stairs to emulate that traditional Japanese architectural style. I then copy it around to the other side and add some similar details to the layer above. The new roof below had the same shape as the one above it, and again I use logs to act as support beams. I add another small white concrete layer with some wooden accents before bringing my design down further. Next, I decide to add some large red pillars to the base of the castle to act as the main supports, using different wooden blocks at the top and bottom to create an interesting and realistic looking design. Now I start to copy these around and join them up under the layer above using some crimson wood to tie things together. With the main structure complete, I wanted to add some more intricate details to really bring this build to life in this final update. I start by adding a large torch to the side of the castle and add an extra roof peak overhanging the roof below. I used various dark wood blocks to outline the roof and create the structure beneath, decorating it with some trapdoors, lanterns and banners. At the front, I added a curved roof and used the same white concrete and dark wood to create a pattern just beneath it. Next, I start working on a detailed design using prismarine blocks to create an ornate archway to act as the entrance to the grand castle. Finally, I add a tiered layer of cobblestone for the castle to sit on, which tends to be the foundation used by most Japanese castles. I add some torches at the entrance and then begin working on the grand staircase. Since I ended up making this castle so large, I remap the terrain to accommodate for the sheer size of the build. I use sand once again to build out the terrain to make it look natural and create an organic look. I then transform all of the sand into stone to fit with the rest of the landscape. Now the terrain still needed some editing, so I added some grass and made a few tweaks before building out a section for the cherry blossom tree to sit on. I also decided to take the stable building I created previously and place it into the terrain below the castle as a little outpost or maintenance building. I update the design to match the materials that I used for the castle. I felt like the grass on the terrain was too much, so I decided to make it a little bit more rocky, mixing in dead coral blocks to give the stone some texture. Next, I then raise the terrain across the lake so that I can start building a bridge to connect to the mainland. Taking inspiration from the pillars I used in the castle design, I create support pillars to sit under the curved bridge, positioning them symmetrically in the gap underneath, before finally adding some custom lanterns to light up the path to the castle. A Japanese inspired build would not be complete without a torii gate, so I paste in the one that we originally had from an earlier update and decide to use the same crimson materials that I used for the pillars on the bridge. All that was left to do was duplicate and reposition the dragons to fit either side of the bridge to really tie everything together. And with that, the build is complete. hope you guys enjoyed another one of these upgrading through every update in Minecraft builds. And as I said at the beginning of this video, if you want to see me do more of these, then get this video to 130,000 likes. Be sure to leave your suggestions down in the comments or over on my Discord as well for what theme I should build in next time. Plus, we're going to hold a little competition over on the Discord, so make sure you head on over there and get involved. Also guys, make sure you check out the plushie. We somehow have to reach 400 sales, but with your guys' help, I think we can do it. Now, if you want to download this build right now, then you can do so over on my Patreon. The subscription is only $5 and you can cancel it any time. But if you do happen to purchase it, you get not only this build, but you get all of my other builds as well. So you can purchase it and cancel your subscription, so it's just a one-time purchase and you'll get all of my world build download things. But apart from that, I'll see you next time.